Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Warcraft video. So, this might be Warcraft's single largest lore development since maybe even Warcraft 3. I mean, really, this is kind of insane in its cosmic significance once you actually think about it. For all of WoW's history, we've known about the old gods, we've known about the Titans, and yeah, Blizzard have revealed much in terms of the details, but we've known of them. And sure, seeing Sargeras, the end of Legion, that was a major lore reveal, but the Arbiter is, while we don't quite feel it yet, perhaps the most significant new lore development yet. She appears to be a being of fundamental importance to the universe, meaning that, yes, she's up there with Elune. She is probably more fundamental than Zira and her Naru, or even the Titans, who she predates. And there's also the end of the world. I mean, look at this snake. Now, what is said to happen when Jormungandr releases his Dale? Ah, yes, Ragnarok, the end of the world. So, yeah, there's a lot to get into in today's video. So, who is the Arbiter? What is the Arbiter? Well, Blizzard have said that she predates memory. Now, we need to think about that line. Memory implies those alive to remember. Now, look at how we describe living memory in the real world. Now, I think this means that the Arbiter came before life did. If we're to take it literally, then, yeah, we also know that she came before the Titans. Blizzard actually went as far to confirm that during BlizzCon. So, she is ancient, and she resides in the undying city of Oribos. Now, from there, she judges the souls of the dead. Blizzard describe her as doing this impassively, and that means without thought or feeling, without emotion. So from there, she sends the souls off to their destination realms, 4 of which we visit in Shadowlands, but there are many more. Now, those other realms, while they exist for different beings and different roles, we're kind of merely visiting the main Azerothian elements or realms of the Shadowlands. Now, as for her city, Oribos, it is described as a crossroads, the arrival point for all souls who enter the Shadowlands. Souls go there and then they're sent on, but there's actually life in the city itself. We're told that the denizens swap gossip and trade anima. There seems to be almost ethereal-like trader characters there. It almost seems a bit lawless, or at least like it has an underbelly. Now that all exists to manage anima, the lifeblood of the Shadowlands, and an essential resource for its realms. So if anima is so important, you may wonder, why is the Arbiter actually allowing people to barter it? Indeed, I've got to imagine there's a lot more going on in Oribos. You see, being the undying city, it clearly has a long history, one that we'll no doubt get a glimpse into. Now, where it really gets going is that if anima is important and it's only released to the Shadowlands when people die, then I've got to imagine there will be a vibrant information economy, people betting on the outcomes of mortal affairs. So, that's the Arbiter. She resides in Oribos, and from there, she judges souls. But let's actually take a look at her. So what really leaps out to me is the black orb on her chest. Now, generally, there's black trim everywhere on her. The white and gold majesty is clearly contrasted by those darker elements, and right at the core of her glorious, golden, trim and pristine white garb is this black jewel. I think that's clearly intended. There's something going on there. I mean, hell, she has a very angelic figure, only for that to transition into the black fabric. So she clearly is a death-associated deity, but she's also got a very feminine figure that would normally be associated with a life and fertility deity. Just look at, say, Freya, right? The real-world design language is used there. So I think through all of this, you see life and death in her design. I think it's quite clear that she's neutral and functional as a character, capable of both reward and punishment. She's clearly grey, very much unlike the Jailer, who appears to just be flat-out an evil character. Now, this casts her as being a character whose primary concern is to uphold order and to keep the machine of death ticking. Now, this brings us on to Elune and the Titans, both of whom I think likely have links. The Arbiter seems far more defined than the Titans, who have shown a lot of free will, right? They order the cosmos, yes, but they do it as they see fit. Now, we know that the Arbiter predates the Titans, but we also know that the Titans bear a striking visual resemblance to elements of her design, and also that of her home city. I mean, if you look at the seat of the Pantheon, it kind of looks like a high-tech Oribos, pretty much. So you've got to wonder, why do the Titans ape her design, yet seemingly abandon Argus, and maybe cover up the realms of death? I mean, Aenar's life associated, Frey is the life keeper, they uplifted Ysera, where's death? They formed the Emerald Dream, and they told us about it, but at no point did they fail to tell us about Ardenweald, even though Odin's actions prove that he, and then, we can assume the other keepers, had knowledge of the Shadowlands. Now, I mentioned Ardenweald. There's also the Elune connection. Every Titan has a pillar of creation, right? But Aenar's one is the Tears of Elune. So let's think about that. You can understand how a warrior, Agramar, would give his shield, or how Khaz'goroth would give the hammer, or, Amenthul's eye, how that makes sense. These are clearly things that originate from the Pantheon members, with the exception of the Tears of Elune. Why does ANR have the Tears of Elune? What did she do to Elune? Here's the thing, the Arbiter seemingly runs the Shadowlands. Ardenweald is one of the realms of the Shadowlands. Now, whenever those associated with nature, such as wild gods, die, we're told they go to Ardenweald, a place that Blizzard describes as being a dark mirror of the Emerald Dream, representing the twilight of nature's cycle. Well, if the Arbiter rules over the death part of nature, like because of that, then how do the Titans gain so much control over the life part of nature, i.e. the Emerald Dream? Why does the Life Titan have the Tears of Elune? What, is a bad breakup, or is there something more sinister there? There's actually another link here. Blizzard have confirmed that Tyrande will be a major character in the Ardenweald storyline. Now, Tyrande is the avatar of Elune's Night Warrior persona. Now here's where that gets kind of interesting. So in patch 8.3, Chandris tells her to come to the Mother's Light and not to fall to the Black Moon's rage. She talks about these two aspects of Elune as if they're separate personas, you know, not unlike the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, if we're to use Christianity as an example of that. One God, three persons, like the Holy Trinity. So, is the Arbiter the death persona of one entity, an entity that rules over life and death, or does the Arbiter have a counterpart in life that we'll get to see at some stage with the self-determined Titans blasting through the natural order of things in their quest to order the universe? There, of course, has been much speculation about Elune and ANR. We've covered that before, but I think going through the connections, you really can see how that mystery has only just grown since then. Okay, with that covered, let's talk about the Ouroboros, right? That is the snake eating its own tail. It is commonly used to represent the cycle of life and death here on Earth. Now, it originated from ancient Egypt, but it moved up through Greece. Now, it's all quite interesting. I mean, that just the Egyptian part is interesting because of the Tolvir architectural links from our past video, but given the visuals of Ouroboros, I think we're leaning more in Norse mythology. Now, one of the signs of Ragnarok is Jormungandr releasing his tail. So yeah, the life and death cycle of the Ouroboros breaks, and that actually ends the current phase of the world in that mythology. And, you know, Blizzard are slightly in the nose when it comes to their use of these things, but I mean, hey, it does make their job a bit easier. So the Ouroboros, that represents, right, the cycle of life and death, and in the city of Oribos, we see an Ouroboros. So Oribos and the Arbiter are clearly parts of that cycle of life and death, and this leads me to believe that she has a counterpart in life, or that maybe in line with the Ouroboros, they're like different sort of personas of the same entity. You know, if it's like life and death, but it's kind of biting its own tail, that's just my read on sort of Blizzard's angle there, but again, there's something pretty darn clear there. And then also one thing I'd like to add is that if Blizzard have said that the machine of life and death has broken, is that basically the equivalent of the Ouroboros letting go of its own tail, of Jormungandr like letting go of its own tail, and you know, that being a sign of Ragnarok. So maybe that machine of death breaking a while ago is what we are dealing with now, or maybe Sylvanas and co. want to essentially break the Ouroboros, break the link, properly break the machine of death, and usher in, well, some sort of end of the world. Now, there's another place that you see the Ouroboros, and that is the Dark Portal. Now, the Dark Portal was created by Sargeras via Medivh and the Shadow Council. And we know that the Shadow Council, from our earlier video, knew about the Shadowlands, as we covered recently. So it's rather curious that the emblem of Ouroboros is found on the Dark Portal, so there's that. Okay, next, Bolvar and the Lich King. So, it is clear that the Legion usurped the power of the Jailer when they created the Lich King and brought the power of the Shadowlands to Azeroth, again, as we covered in our, I think, most recent lore video. Now, the Jailer and the Arbiter, they don't seem to get along, so you've got to wonder there, was Bolvar working with the Arbiter? I mean, Bolvar and Bomsamdi were both angry about Sylvanas, you know, keeping those that she killed and disrupting the balance. So I think clearly in destroying the Lich King, Sylvanas robbed the Arbiter of her greatest champion on Azeroth, and maybe a character who was sort of fighting against what the Jailer wanted to do. I think parts of that are likely, and it's probably a part of the story they're going to go into as we explore Bolvar further in the next expansion. And then finally, we of course have Vol'jin. So, the Lich King told him that he was neither undead nor damned. Aegir told him that he had been touched by the hand of valor. Both confirmed that the person who whispered Sylvanas' name to him when he was dying is not the person who aided his soul. So I think it's pretty darn clear that the Arbiter is the one who changed him, and that the Jailer whispered to him, perhaps under the guise of a troll Loa, or maybe he had Muzala do it for him. So, there you go. The Arbiter is a powerful powerful character who is greatly responsible for upholding the cycle of life and death. It's clear to me that Shadowlands is going to establish much of Warcraft's future, that it's going to give you the tidbits that will really allow Blizzard to just use it as a springboard to explore more of that cosmology chart, to take us to more far-flung places. I mean, take Xal'atath, right? She pretty much said she was going off to space. Now, we know there's a lot of stuff going on in space. There's the Locust Walker breadcrumb, there's all of the Void guys, there's all Valeria's visions. I think it's pretty clear Shadowlands is going to be like the first stage into really World of Warcraft getting a little bit bonkers, which, you know what, I'm totally okay with. I love the fantastical, I loved Outland, and I'm pretty sure I love, at least, scene-wise, architecture-wise, culture-wise, the different lands and places that Blizzard may be taking us to in the future. So, there you go, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what your own theories are down below, and with that, I will see you next time.